Within its abdomen, in a circular ball of flesh, subatomic particles collide endlessly. Nuclear energy, ionized plasma, hotter than the sun, wells up its throat. And boom! When I was little, that scaly living mountain stirred not just fear, but a sense of awe in me, to be unrestrained, unbounded by worldly laws. But I knew deep down that Godzilla was just a fictional creature. Or is it? The more I studied the Monster King's biology, its internal organs, its bloodstream, its energy system, the more I felt that maybe Godzilla could exist in real life. How do its abilities work on a biological level? Can Godzilla exist in real life? How do we engineer a real-world Godzilla? Of course, if the US Army is watching, it's obviously the fight of the aliens. Anyways, in this video, I'll be answering all of those questions. The book Shin Godzilla Confidential Research Reading Book by Tetsuya Kakitani contains this detailed diagram of Godzilla's anatomy, and its organs can be roughly separated into 4 different systems, each with their own specific functions. A single one less would mean, well... Anyways, let's start with Godzilla's biological nuclear reactor, aka how it creates that iconic blue beam of annihilation. Now, this organ system consists of 2 parts, the nucleogenic sacs and the thermonuclear energy disintegration organ, or TEDO. Let me explain. The nucleogenic sacs are a multi-lobed organ surrounding Godzilla's spinal cord, and each lobe is basically a reaction chamber where nuclear fission occurs to produce its iconic breath. The radioactive substances required are absorbed from the environment through its skin. But why do we need multiple of these lobes? Can't we just have a single big one? Well, this design allows it to control the energy buildup rather than just exploding every time it sneezes. As for the TEDO, here's a fun fact. Godzilla requires around 8.3 million calories every single day. That's like 15,000 Big Macs. Huh? 1.5 million Big Macs are sold in the US every single day, which means that technically we can raise like 100 Godzillas, but the greenhouse gas emissions, water usage, and biodiversity... Okay, that's enough. Thankfully, Godzilla doesn't need any food thanks to the TEDO. It can convert radiation passively absorbed from the surroundings into energy for its daily activities. But this creates a problem. How does Godzilla not melt, not explode from the inside? This is related to the other 3 organ systems, the blood circulatory system, skin and bones, and the spiky crystal thingies. So around Godzilla's biological nuclear reactor, there lies an extensive network of blood vessels. With each pump of its heart, dark red fluid, 35,000 times that of a human, courses through its arteries. Its 530,000 gallons of blood has an extremely high specific heat capacity, meaning it can absorb a large amount of heat, but only becomes slightly hotter. By the way, if you're wondering how I know this, in every Godzilla film, there are hidden details about the involved kaiju in the credit sequences. Next up are its skin and bones. The support is 164,000 ton body weight. An official book says that Godzilla's skin and bones are made of carbon, the same element used in ships. However, it also says this, a new material. Since the officials can't explain it, I will. One speculative answer is tungsten-like bioaccumulation. Let me explain. Some microorganisms in hydrothermal vents use tungsten in their enzymes instead of iron. Tungsten is extremely dense, heat-resistant, and has a very high melting point. Godzilla could accumulate tungsten in its bloodstream and bind them into its bones. Now this would allow it to adopt the same characteristics. Finally, the spiky crystal thingies. Now these things have multiple functions. First, to store and channel nuclear energy. Second, to increase the surface area of Godzilla's body. This way, not only can it absorb and release more radiation, it can also dissipate excess heat more quickly. But after all this, one question remains. Can Godzilla exist in real life? But, just because something doesn't exist, does that mean that it cannot exist? Well, turns out, a real-world Godzilla may be possible with some modifications. Now, I'm sure you all know that Godzilla was a mutant created by nuclear radiation, and this is not a fantasy at all, it's a real scientific thing. There is a technique called mutation breeding, which uses radiation to induce genetic mutations in plants. This is a ruby red grapefruit, filled with seeds, annoying to eat. But one day, scientists decided to expose this fruit to X-rays and gamma rays, and boom! The seeds are gone, it's sweeter, and most importantly, it makes more money. But why did this happen? Well, let me explain. Here's George. If we expose him to radiation, high-energy particles will break down the chemical bonds in his DNA. This will alter his genetic code, which changes his physical characteristics. Now, it's important to note that every living organism accumulates these small random mutations naturally. What radiation does is increase the rate of mutation. But this is where things get interesting. Mutations aren't inherently bad or good. It's kinda like shaking a puzzle box very hard. The pieces move faster, but they don't automatically assemble into a better picture. Let's get back to George, for instance. Maybe mutation could remove his tail. Maybe it could give him the ability to breathe underwater.
I am under the water.
Or it could give him cancer. Unfortunately, or fortunately, according to science, it's impossible to forge a 100% exact copy of Godzilla through mutation. But what we can do is redefine Godzilla. Hear me out. What is Godzilla really? To me, it's a force of nature, a judge of the gods. This is Test Subject 69, our prototype for a real-world Godzilla. Firstly, we can expose him to X-rays and gamma rays to make him radiation resistant. After all, tardigrades and... I'm definitely not reading that.
Deinococcus radiodurans
already show that it is theoretically possible. However, there's still the biggest hurdle. The moment Godzilla leaps out of our TVs, it would become a pancake. The square cube law states that as an animal doubles in height, its surface area and bone strength increases by 4 times, but its volume and mass increases by 8 times. Basically, as a shape grows in size, its volume grows faster than its surface area. So for a 400 feet tall Godzilla weighing 90,000 tons, he'll be crushed under his own weight the moment he stepped onto land. The solution? Well, we just have to put Test Subject 69 in the water. On land, bones and muscles must support the full weight of its body, but in water, there's the help of buoyant force, allowing organisms to grow larger. This would allow Test Subject 69 to be around 80 to 100 feet long, like megalodons and blue whales. Last but not least, Godzilla's breath. Now, a one-to-one copy is theoretically impossible, but what we can do is create a downgraded version. Instead of a breath, Test Subject 69 would be like an electric eel, or rather, a radioactive eel. It would emit low doses of radiation when it senses danger. An absolute force of nature, emperor of the seas, unstoppable bar none. This magnificent one deserves the bestowal of a true name. Let's call it Fishyzilla.